Prime Minister Theresa May and her husband Philip have begun a week-long walking holiday in Italy, having survived a tortuous month in Parliament. The Conservative leader, who survived several Crunch Commons votes but lost the services of David Davis and Boris Johnson, will return in a week to resume work in her constituency and in Downing Street. However, the couple will jet off to Switzerland following a First World War event in Amiens to commemorate the centenary of the battle, which commenced on August 8, 1918. Mrs. May and her husband arrived by boat on the dock of the Hotel Continental in Garda. Police were spotted outside the £600 a night Hotel Cortine, although it is not known where she is staying. The PM is well known for her love of walking holidays, but her decision to go to the country following an pre-Easter break in Wales last year led to the loss of the parliamentary majority she inherited from David Cameron. Mrs. May begins her holiday after securing the agreement of Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz, who agreed that Brexit should be discussed by EU leaders at an informal meeting in Salzburg on September 20th. It means that the Prime Minister has an extra gathering of leaders of the EU 27 in which to convince them to support a Brexit plan after a week in which ministers have been deployed to various capitals to woo senior politicians. Share this article. Share the next meeting is a gathering of EU leaders in Brussels in October, by which time it has been hoped a Brexit deal will be hammered out. Mrs. May was dealt a blow by Brussels on Thursday as its chief Brexit negotiator, Michel Barnier, rejected the customs proposals that form a key plank of her white paper. A Downing Street spokesman said, following their dinner at Downing Street 3 weeks earlier, the Prime Minister and Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz had a positive conversation ahead of the Salzburg Festival. The Prime Minister updated on the white paper, and Chancellor Kurz confirmed that Brexit would be on the agenda for the informal European Council, which Austria would host on 20 September. Mrs. May also pitched her deal planning to her Czech and Estonian counterparts, Andrej Babis and Juri Radas, during talks at the Salzburg Festival. Mrs. May attended the music event before heading off to Italy for the start of her summer holidays. Ahead of their meeting, Mr. Kurz said it was important to avoid a hard Brexit. It came as the head of a pan-European dairy cooperative warned that a no-deal Brexit would risk soaring prices and supply problems getting products to consumers. Ashami Ramardi, UK Managing Director of Arla Foods, spoke after ministers last week raised the spectre of foods and medicines being stockpiled as part of contingency planning in case the UK leaves the EU without a deal in place on customs. Mr. Ashami Ramardi told BBC Radio 4's Today programme that 16% of UK dairy products are imported, and of those 98% were from Europe, saying, "If we have barriers at our ports, then that is what is going to lead to increased prices and potentially supply issues." He added that World Trade Organization (WTO) tariffs, which would come into play if there was no Brexit deal on dairy products, are penal, and that stockpiling produce is not something that is really practical for the dairy industry. He said the average person in the UK consumes the equivalent of 3 pints of milk per day, adding, "One of the reasons they do is because of the nutritious benefits of it, but it is also accessible in terms of prices." Any increase in the friction of movement of products will inevitably lead to higher costs, and therefore one of our concerns is to make sure consumer prices are accessible post-Brexit.